Over the past couple decades or so, the concept of fantasy sports has risen towards the top of the mainstream. And through no accident, the explosion of the internet propelled fantasy sports from basement caverns that nestled numerous newspaper stacks scrutinized by nerds to a point of prominence where office pools nationwide are replaced by fantasy leagues, which actually may be more fun than Hawaiian Shirt Day, but I digress.
So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Fantasy sports websites emerge on the cusp of becoming billion-dollar industries, and possibly might be by the time you're watching this. How else could anyone justify building up fantasy golf and fantasy NASCAR? Yes, those are actually things. By extension, fantasy's uprising has given birth to Matthew Berry and a whole slew of media bearing the newly dubbed title Fantasy Analyst, which sounds like somebody breaking down Disney films in an albeit hilarious fashion. Yes, Demos, show the world you aren't too shameless for a plug. And yes, I refer to participants of fantasy sports as nerds. People floundering around with numbers, statistics, and countless records is no different than someone playing Dungeons and Dragons. What makes Clark Kent not a nerd isn't the fact he puts on a sports jersey, but the fact he marked achievements as a champion. And yes, that's some Kurt Rambis schmack you just witnessed. You may not get it, but Laker fans and 80s and 90s basketball fans are digging it. Trust me. Some might argue that fantasy sports can pan out significant cash. That means it's not nerdy. But I'd remind you that there are plenty of nerds that cash in based on their nerdy skills. They're called IT workers. But seriously, the fact that it's mainstream doesn't make it any less nerdy. Not that there aren't any significantly nerdy things currently out there killing it in the mainstream. Nope. None whatsoever. Can't think of one. Not a damn thing. Not to imply nerdy being adopted into the mainstream is only a bad thing. There's plenty of good things. And some things that crush the souls of the public everywhere. And here is the good and the bad of fantasy sports, football in particular, of course, through the eyes of the student of the game. The success of any sport is dependent on exposure. Reaching, engaging, and entertaining fans and keeping them coming back is essential. And an experience as interactive as fantasy sports is a godsend. Why do you think NFL.com and ESPN have their own separate fantasy sports leagues? Or go to the trouble to display stats with the most advanced data intelligence outside of a corporate boardroom for free? The fans become engaged. And think about this. Fanhood as a barrier to marketing certain games is now out the window. Sure, Bears versus Packers, Steelers versus Ravens, Cowboys versus Giants will always get more numbers. But even pointless matchups such as Jaguars versus Titans on Thursday Night Football drew more TV numbers in 2014 than postseason games in other mainstream sports. Why? Because someone has Zach Mettenberger as their fantasy quarterback. Conversely, the focus on stats and scoring takes away from some of the truly great things football has to offer, like these two guys on the same D-line. And for context, that's like these two guys teaming up to terrorize a passer. And if Jadeveon Clowney is healthy in 2015, it's as if they just invited this guy to the party as well. Or another example, J.J. Watt catching a touchdown. In 2014, that was a pretty awesome event within the whole of the season. And someone probably watched that and got angry because they missed out on fantasy points since the Texans didn't run the ball to score. Look, bringing in casual fans may cheapen some of the game's gusto, but it also helps assure that there'll still be a game to consume as easily as football currently is to consume right now. Businesses have incentive to deliver these experiences to you as convenient as possible this way. Because without fantasy sports, I doubt Dolphin fans would be totally psyched that their stadium's wireless infrastructure upgrades are getting a major overhaul. Then there's the biggest plague on the sports media landscape, the fantasy analyst. They represent a problem best illustrated this way. Nobody watches Dr. Henry Jones Jr. to pontificate on his search for fact. They want to see Indiana Jones find the X on the map.
X marks the spot.
Or fight Nazis. For me, I don't want to watch a guy tell me about trends and points scored in the previous seasons or games. Give me an actual sports reason for a fantasy prediction. You already have the bar set so low that weathermen look like Nostradamus compared to you and what you get right.
I make it rain. I make it rain on them homes. I make it rain. I make it rain on them roads. I make it rain.
Heck, I only played 1 full year of fantasy football, which I won, thank you. But I can poke more holes in their analysis than I can count bullet holes in the lobby scene of The Matrix. Just don't have time to do it in this episode, but it certainly consists of things that shouldn't be surprising to someone who's getting paid to do this, such as an NFL team's schedule. In short, I think fantasy sports on the whole are generally positive. It helps make football popular, and if you are a fan, the Sunday ritual of the NFL viewing is something that will remain uninterrupted and embraced, and that is an overall good thing if you're a fan. However, be smart about consuming things that are labeled fantasy. Not everything in the fantasy world is necessarily a unicorn. You want me to break down these or other fantasy points or other sports topics in general? Here's how to find me. You know, the Twitter, the Facebook, the email, all that. Also, be sure to do the like and subscribe thing. I mean, heck, we're trying to get a little bit more popular. Let's keep that rolling too. But until next time, class dismissed.
Next week, Egyptology, starting with the excavation of New Crates by Flinders Petrie in 1885.